Welcome back, focused learners and KSET, SET, and UGC NET candidates. Let's dive straight into today's explainer. We're going to actively deconstruct 10 high-yield literature questions to really build your conceptual retention. We aren't just going to look at the right answers, we're going to tear apart the distractors, analyze the historical context, and completely solidify your understanding of major literary movements. Honestly, this is exactly how you master the multiple choice format.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We've organized our questions into 3 core literary eras. First up is modern and experimental theater. Second, the Shakespearean era. And finally, we'll wrap up with history and post-colonial perspectives. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Modern and experimental theater.
All right, here is our first trap for the exam. Take a close look at this question. Of the following, who was the product of the Royal Court Theatre? Now, think about the post-World War II landscape in London and ask yourself who actually achieved international breakthrough success on this specific stage.
You see, examiners know you'll recognize all of these names, so breaking down the distractors is absolutely crucial here. John Arden and John Whiting, sure, they were important dramatists associated with modern British theatre, but they were never the symbolic breakthrough playwrights of the Royal Court. And Samuel Beckett, a massive figure obviously, but the Irish playwright is famously tied to the theatre of the absurd, not the Royal Court movement. The key takeaway? Only John Osborne launched the Angry Young Men movement right here in 1956 with his explosive play Look Back in Anger. Because his career flourished so directly through this venue, he is hands down the definitive product of the Royal Court Theatre.
Speaking of Samuel Beckett and the absurd, this next question really tests your ability to distinguish between the heavyweights of that exact movement. It asks, the absurdist play, Rhinoceroses, is by...
Look at how these options are perfectly designed to mess with your head. If you panic, you might just see the word absurdist and immediately jump to Samuel Beckett. But while Beckett gave us the masterpiece Waiting for Godot, he didn't write this play. You might also think, hey, a human turning into a bug, and guess Franz Kafka, who wrote Metamorphosis. Or maybe you get sidetracked by Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago. But actually, it is the brilliant Eugene Ionesco who wrote Rhinoceros in 1959. Matching the author to their specific masterpiece, that's going to save you on test day.
Let's pause for a second, because truly grasping this literary movement is a total game changer. The theater of the absurd was a post-World War II movement born straight out of existential dread and the perceived meaninglessness of human existence. In Ionesco's Rhinoceros, the protagonist, Berenger, watches in absolute horror as the people around him literally transform into rhinoceroses. If you see this on your upcoming exam, lock in these exact keywords. It is a profound critique of conformity, fascism, mass psychology, and the loss of individuality. It's essentially herd mentality made literal.
All right, moving into some broader theatrical rebellion. Let's look at question 138. Experimental drama is associated with which of these playwrights? This is a brilliant example of how examiners use historical timelines to trick you. Just look at the distractors. Christopher Marlowe, he belongs to Renaissance tragedy. Molière is the master of 17th century French comedy. And Jean Racine represents French neoclassical tragedy. Every single one of them is centuries too early for the modern categorization of experimental drama. So by process of elimination, that leaves us with Bertolt Brecht. Brecht totally revolutionized drama with his epic theater. He intentionally shattered traditional illusions using his alienation effect, forcing the audience to stay critically aware rather than just getting emotionally lost in the narrative.
To round out our modern theater cluster, we're crossing over to American drama to look at Arthur Miller's 1968 play, The Price, and the specific relationships it tests. Does it present a feud between 2 sisters, 2 brothers, 3 brothers, or 2 cousins?
You know, examiners absolutely love testing your knowledge of character dynamics. Why? Because it proves you actually know the plot, not just the title on the cover. For The Price, there are no sisters or cousins at the center of the feud, and it's strictly limited to 2 brothers, not 3. The title, The Price, actually refers to the emotional sacrifice, the moral choices, and the profound guilt that exists specifically between 2 brothers, Victor and Walter Franz, as they sort through and sell off their late father's antique furniture.
Moving on to Section 2, the Shakespearean era.
Now, this is a classic negation question. You are going to see these all the time. They force you to weed out the imposter among authentic texts. So, which of the following plays was not written by Shakespeare?
To nail this one, you really have to know your obscure texts. Let's eliminate the distractors by looking at the timeline. Titus Andronicus is notoriously his bloody early tragedy.
Pericles is one of his late romances, which modern scholarship heavily accepts as a collaboration with George Wilkins. And A Lover's Complaint? That's a narrative poem traditionally credited to him, published right alongside his sonnets back in 1609. So the odd one out here is Love's Triumph through Callipolis. That one is actually a Caroline Court masque written by his contemporary Ben Jonson.
Let's pivot to historical criticism for question 135. You've probably heard of the University Wits, a group of late 16th century English playwrights educated at Oxford or Cambridge. Well, one of them, Robert Greene, threw a famously bitter insult at a young Shakespeare in 1592, calling him an upstart crow beautified with our feathers. If you're ever asked to fill in the blank on an exam for this quote, feathers is the magic word. Greene was incredibly jealous, basically accusing Shakespeare, a guy without a university degree, of stealing ideas from properly educated dramatists.
But on the flip side, for question 136, we jump forward a few decades and see a completely different resection. John Milton, the legend who wrote Paradise Lost, penned a poem called L'Allegro. In it, he gives Shakespeare this incredibly affectionate praise, calling him sweet as Shakespeare, fancy's child. The word fancy here highlights Shakespeare's unbound imagination. Talk about a stark contrast to Greene's petty jealousy, right? If your exam options ever throw in names like Dryden, Johnson, or Bunyan, always remember it was Milton who coined this specific loving phrase.
Okay, let's dive into one of the Bard's final masterpieces, The Tempest. Question 137 asks us to identify its defining thematic engine. Is it satire, supernaturalism, astronomy, or history?
The absolute key here is eliminating what just doesn't fit the core genre. The Tempest is for sure not a history play. It's firmly categorized as a romance. And sure, maybe astronomy is referenced in passing, but it isn't a major theme. You could even argue there are secondary elements of social satire regarding the royals, but the entire plot, it is completely driven by supernaturalism. Think about it. Prospero's books of magic, the spirit Ariel, the monstrous Caliban, the enchanted island itself. Supernaturalism is the undeniable lifeblood of this text.
And that brings us to section 3, history and post-colonial perspectives. Since history so often dictates literary movements, wrapping your head around the political chaos of 17th century England is basically non-negotiable for these exams. Question 139 asks, Oliver Cromwell is also known as what? Was he the savior of the monarchy, the supporter of Charles I, the Lord Protector, or the Prince of Scotland?
To break down these distractors, we really need to rely on some cold, hard historical facts. Cromwell definitively was not a supporter of Charles I. I mean, he literally led the armies against him. He certainly wasn't the savior of the monarchy either, because he went ahead and temporarily abolished it right after the English Civil War. And the Prince of Scotland? Never happened. Instead, Cromwell ruled over the Commonwealth of England, Scotland, and Ireland under one very specific title, the Lord Protector, serving precisely between 1653 and 1658. Knowing this exact timeline is vital if you want to truly understand the literature of the Puritan Age and the Restoration period that followed.
Bringing this explainer full circle, let's look at how a modern historical and cultural lens totally shifts how we read classic texts today. The question is, which Caribbean writer famously reinterpreted Shakespeare's The Tempest in terms of Caribbean identity?
This question perfectly illustrates the power of post-colonial literature. Let's look at the options. V.S. Naipaul and Carol Phillips. Yes, they are indeed major writers with Caribbean roots. Wilson Harris, he definitely weaves complex mythology into his work, but none of them are famous for this specific reinterpretation. That honor goes to George Lamming. In his 1960 work, The Pleasures of Exile, Lamming explicitly re-examined the dynamic between Prospero and Caliban. He completely stripped away the fairy tale supernaturalism and scrutinized the text through the harsh, real-world realities of colonialism and slavery. In doing so, he transformed Caliban into this incredibly powerful symbol of colonized Caribbean resistance.
You know, literature isn't just some dusty list of old books you have to memorize. It's this endless, fascinating cycle of influence, critique, and reinterpretation. Think about it. If Robert Greene could call Shakespeare an upstart crow, and George Lamming could turn Shakespeare's Caliban into a modern symbol of resistance, how are you going to reinterpret these historical facts to conquer your own examinations? Keep deconstructing those distractors. Keep asking exactly why the wrong answers are wrong, and you will absolutely dominate your upcoming tests. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy studying.